I have a ton of stuff to cover. I'm going to rapid fire through this stuff. The topic is essentially growth hacking social media, concepts, tools, and scalable wins. Just a little bit about me. You might be able to tell by the accent. I'm not Danish or Swedish. I'm actually from Washington, D.C. I've been in Denmark for almost 4 years now. I am the former CMO of Valuer.ai. I got fired 3 weeks ago, and it's partially because of so many different projects that I'm working on. Super excited to show you guys all this stuff. 12 years of marketing experience. I do a ton of public speaking at a lot of different universities because it's incredibly frustrating to see students come into organizations and using, as Pixie had mentioned, a lot of really old school techniques, and I want to show what's possible. So, some of the many different projects that I have going. Architecture Quote is something I've been working on for a year and a half. One of the founders, it's basically lead aggregation for architects. Really old school industry, well overdue for disruption. Clint Marketing is my marketing agency. Kept meeting with a lot of different startups just within Copenhagen alone that weren't setting up their tech funnels correctly in terms of deal flow and all these other things. So if you're interested in some of the hacks and potentially a really good growth agency, holler at your boy. I do teach a 2-day course over at Talent Garden, and it's basically, 16 hours of hearing my voice. So if you can't stand this now, wait till you sit in a class. And last but not least, taylorryan.io is my speaker site. So I love doing these things, and you'll kind of understand why. It's a ton of fun for me. So if you have any events coming up, keep me in mind. If you want my slides, I'm happy to give them to you. Just make sure to connect and add a message or a little note that basically says, hey, I want your slides. I'm working with a really talented videographer and always trying to find new and interesting ways to kind of hook them up. So Timba, raise your hand. Hey, there you go. Really good documentarian as well as videographer, and I'm lucky enough to work with the guy. A little fun fact, my first time to Sweden was actually an accident. I was supposed to go to Denmark, and I took the train going the wrong direction. So this is now my 3rd time in Sweden. But it was so funny, the lady was coming around checking tickets, and she's asking me where I'm supposed to go, and I show her my ticket. And she goes, oh, honey, you're in Sweden! And the entire train car starts erupting in laughter. I'm like, well, it's great, you guys fucking know where to go. But yeah, it's been fun. So my goal for today is to provide value. I want people to be able to take away the tools, the hacks, and the different ways of thinking and apply them immediately. That's why I'm also giving out the slides. If you think that I'm out of tricks after a 25-minute presentation, no fucking chance. So you're more than allowed to have these. I don't give a shit. Sorry, I also have a bit of a cursing problem, but we'll go over that later. So I kind of got a feel for the audience, but I do want to see how many people are kind of in the technical areas. So how many people have actually built a campaign in Google Ads Manager on Facebook? Okay, cool, nice. All right, so there's going to be some relevancy for you folks, but also for those that haven't. I go around kind of the bush of talking about growth hacking, but I wanted to give people a definition and also help those that are not super familiar understand. I take a lot of the principles of being bootstrapped and apply them to scalable models. So the idea is growth hacking is doing the most with the least amount of time and money in order to get the biggest results. So instead of doing a 1-for-1 approach, I want to do 1 for 50, 1 for 1,000, 1 for 10,000. So you'll start to see what that looks like. Another analogy that I often use that I think people can maybe put into their heads is if you go to a mechanic, your car breaks down, you go, I don't know, something's not working here. And there's 2 mechanics on the job. One is a guy that's read every book about fixing your particular car, but has never worked on one. And he's basically familiar up to 5 years of theoretical experience. And the other guy has dirt under his fingernails, grease everywhere, and basically says, I've fixed everything within that automobile. I want the second guy to fix my shit because he's familiar, he has the actual practical experience. And that's what I'm trying to teach. Marketing is all about systems, and once you understand how one system works, you can start to apply it to all the others. So if you understand content really, really well, you can understand SEO. And if you understand SEO and some of the technical elements of that, you can apply it to SEM and so on. So nothing in marketing is kind of a bubble. So the concept is you need to apply these thoughts and these theories across the board. So I wanted to go over algorithms. I'm going to try to run through this super quick to give you a bit of a theoretical understanding. So algorithms are constantly evolving, and now like the new jam, the new shit, is meaningful engagement. What does that mean? Meaningful engagement is essentially, are people having conversations around the topic that you're trying to put out to the world? And that is going to be the difference between getting engagement and ultimately traffic and conversions versus, I don't know, farting into a giant echo chamber. And a lot of brands are doing that. And I want to show some examples of how bad it's actually getting. More success begets more success. So for those that have put out a ton of content on LinkedIn, you'll start to note that the more stuff that you get engaged, the easier it is to get more engagement overall. And then in terms of social media affecting search engine results page, or SERP, you're seeing that now. And this is like the first time in like 3 years that people are actually saying, no, there is an effect. There is a noted effect. And I want to go into why that is. And the last little bit is relevancy and trust. So Google came out with this new core update that was all about EAT: expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Terrible acronym and terrible verbiage, but the idea is simple. You're basically trying to dispel fake news, and you're trying to create trust within your brand or within the messaging you're putting out. So this is kind of a rough analogy. I don't know, maybe there's just not enough fucking buffets out here. But the way that I try to give people an understanding of how algorithms work is, imagine a buffet owner that just wants to please every customer that comes in. So when your first post goes live, in the old days, you used to get an impression rate of almost 10%. Nowadays, honestly, it's less than 2 according to some websites. I think it's less than 0.002%, and I'll show why. But the idea is that when people come and say, ooh, I like cupcakes, let me take a couple of those, then the owner of the restaurant wants to put out more cupcakes. So early success is essentially what ends up boosting you on these channels, but also the more people that engage with this, the more opportunities you have to get more and more and more impressions. Again, tough analogy, but I haven't found the perfect one for it yet. Each type of engagement is weighted, so a comment goes a lot further, and it has to be more than 3 words, than your average like or your average share, and I'll show you kind of why that is. So this is Facebook's algorithm. Facebook's algorithm has a lot of different ways of being looked at, and I'll show 2 different kind of trains of thought. So inventory, so what other posts are coming out at the same time? Is it all videos that are structured on your newsfeed? No. The idea is that you don't want to see the same kind of content across all the stuff that's hitting your newsfeed. So you're kind of victim of whatever else is being posted at the same time. Signals is interesting. So if you are a known publisher, a major publisher, you stand to reason there's a lot more opportunities to get impressions. Historical references. So if you have a history of lots of engagement, you're going to continue to get lots of engagement. And demographics. If you are posting to a certain type of demographic and you continue to get engagement from that type of demographic, that is who your future engagement will be continually. And it's frustrating because maybe you want to reach a different audience. And then there's a prediction element. So essentially, the potential for a post to be engaged, and then a score is applied. This is a different way of looking at it. This is EdgeRank, and this is kind of what the buzz was like 10 years ago. But the idea is the affinity score means who are you interconnected to? Who are the connections that are more likely to engage on that content? They'll end up seeing it. Edge weights is super interesting. So again, it's comments are the shit. And we're trying to get something in the way of a meaningful, introspective look and a conversation going. So conversation starters always work better. Emotional reactions, relevance to your audience is super important. Not too clickbaity, and engagement bait gets you punished. The last little bit is time decay. So the longer it's been since you've posted, the less impressions you'll get. That's why that first hour is so crucial on LinkedIn. Don't do this shit. So the idea is like, comment with blank in order to get my slides. I don't know. That one I see on LinkedIn, and it's still working. But in terms of trying to encourage people to tag others in a meme, what ends up happening is those people actually get punished over time. So don't do that. And there's all kinds of share baiting and tag baiting for contests. That stuff doesn't work anymore, and over time you end up losing your overall rate of impressions because you're essentially getting punished for doing that. So I wanted to go into some cool stuff that's happening with Facebook groups. So Facebook groups get way more engagement than your company pages ever will. And I want to show 3 examples down there on the bottom. Facebook continues to change the conversation because the shit that we're putting out on the different company channels isn't working because it's too damn promotional. Nobody cares about your new fucking feature. Tell me what you're going to do for me. Inspire me, entertain me, get me into a conversation. Don't just show me your pricing or don't just show me something that you're doing. And you're going to start seeing more of this because it's not working. So I want to hop out of my presentation real quick and just show how bad it's got. So this is Crunchbase. Does anybody know Crunchbase? I feel like it's pretty common. So it's for startups to essentially register themselves so you can see essentially funding rounds and discovery and all that good stuff. So they have 28,000 followers. And if I go down the page, I want to show you even the people that are putting out this shit aren't liking it. So there's 2 likes, 3 likes, hey, 6, that ain't bad. 2. So it's there we go, 0. So the person that posted this didn't even like it. Thanks, Mom. And that's happening across the board. Let me show another example. AngelList. AngelList has 44,000. Same shit, right? 4 likes, 6, 4, 6, meh. One of my favorite tools that's really good in terms of product communication is a platform called Intercom, and it allows you to send out a lot of customized messaging and segmentation. And these guys have one of the better blogs I've ever seen. They're at 34,000 as well, and 1 engagement. I hope that was the person that, here you go, here, fucking like for you. I just don't understand. And you're looking at countless hours spent putting out content. Is this a good use of our time as marketers? Probably not. And unfortunately, a lot of this is bullshit vanity metrics. We're only going after stuff that we can see. So I want to show a couple of different ways to hijack this and a couple of different tools that you can use. So from current slide, here we go. So why don't you create your own group? And a lot of people go, oh, it's hard starting from 0. Yeah, no, it's really not. And I want to show you how you can go about doing that. But you need to go about this the same way that you would do ASO, App Store Optimization, or the way that you would optimize a landing page for SEO. So I want to get a bunch of keywords that are relevant to this target group. So if these are customers and I'm a B2B company, I need to make sure that I'm mentioning the things inside of the title, the description, and the tags that are hyper relevant. And by the way, we're not creating one, we're creating multiples. That way we continue to feed shit into these groups and continue to get engagement. One way to think about this is this psychology principle, social proof. So let's say you're vacationing in a new city and you go down the main promenade and you see that restaurant on the right with a ton of people sitting down, and then on the left you see an empty restaurant with nobody at the tables. You immediately assume the empty restaurant sucks because nobody's there. It doesn't mean the food's any better. It doesn't mean anything other than, I guess, more people sat down and they're like, oh, that looks good. Looks like people are eating there. It's not poison. Let's go for that one. And we're all victims of this. We all do that. So I think there's some really cool hacks that you can actually do right away in order to generate content for these groups without having to put in a ton of time using the concept of social proof. So Google News, Reddit, Quora, BuzzSumo, these are all aggregate platforms that are pulling out live posts or live content that is actually engaging and working. So the concept is, if I pump in Reddit and I go to Reddit's homepage, and maybe the industry that I was serving or could be serving in the future is around startups, then I plug in startups, search, sort by the last 30 days, and I get the most active content that is engaged over the last 30 days. And then from there, I can either reshare the exact same thing, or I can tweak it just slightly so it's mine. And I want to show a couple of different ways to do that after this slide. In terms of reach, it's really easy to set up this stuff. I did a short speech on basically setting up action scripts, a CSV upload, and then automating 50 posts at a time. The idea is that I don't want this one-for-one thing, so I don't need a graphic designer to create one single post. I want 50 at a time so that these are all plugged in automatically. And that's the idea, is if all this content is hitting different groups, then I stand the best chance of actually engaging people that give a shit. So a couple of quick ideas in terms of getting more engagement. These are pretty obvious across both platforms, but in terms of managing your own engagement, If you're writing lists, make sure to tag people, but don't do it all in the main post. We experimented a bit with this over at Valuer, and it doesn't work as well as I would like. But it does work if you throw these people into the comments. So tag everybody in the comments section, but only 3 to 5 in the main post. In terms of hashtags on Facebook, you might as well throw your money out the window. There's no point, right? It's 1 to 2, but honestly, on your own page, it doesn't matter. In terms of early engagement, that is the differentiator, and I'll show a couple of quick tools. So I reshare the same shit over and over and over and over and over. The idea is that if it worked once, it's going to work again. And so I do that with my most popular posts. So we have this regular article that's been essentially bulletproof every time that we share it. It's the top 50 companies that have been basically failed to innovate over at Valuer. And so we released an ebook version of it, even though it's on the blog. Anybody can find it. We've done a ton of different downloadable pieces across that, and we release that once every 2 months because it's new to somebody else, and every time it works. So re-release everything. Every post that strikes gold, re-release it 2, 3, 4 weeks later, or a month later, whatever the case is. Templates are super easy. I don't want to go into a ton of this stuff because it's more branding. I think people have hit branding enough. But filters. So let's say that you're creating this group. We have to find ways to make sure that we're keeping out the riffraff. So make it a closed group. Require a questionnaire, 3 questions max, because if somebody is just trying to spam the hell out of your group, the reality is they're not going to answer the 3 questions. They'll be like, too difficult, don't want to bother. And I also get rid of the bad players. So if somebody is like a problem member and keeps posting ads for their company, I remove them. In terms of getting out good content, if you really feel passionate about creating original shit, that's fine, but schedule time for it and do it all at once. So whenever I do video stuff, I make sure to do 5, 6 videos all in the same setting. And honestly, it's really easy. You just have to make time for it. So let me dive into a couple of social media hacks that it's funny, like I did a speech over at Search Stars about 2 weeks ago, and you'd swear that I was telling people how to go about making a meth lab, because I don't know if like there's something weird about, I don't know, the water here in Sweden, but people are like, you can't do that, and I'm like, fuck yeah, you can. So I want to show you a couple of different ways to do it. All right, so what I'm basically going to show you is how to hijack posts on a lot of other groups that are relevant for you. Again, I'm just putting it out there. You don't have to buy it, but take a look. So first you have to discover a shitload of groups. And the idea is that this is a job for an intern. No offense to interns. I know there's one sitting over there. I heard his question. It's cool, man. I've been there. But it's also a great job for a virtual assistant. So if I have enough groups compiled and I'm setting a minimum of 3,000 members, the more exposure I get, the better. But this is what it looks like. And I have hundreds of groups depending on the topic of the article. So the concept is I want to find the most engaged content in each of these groups. And you start to notice a bit of a trend when you're going through these things. It's often visuals, but it's a question that is also inside of these visuals or just outside in the post. It has a call to action, which means either a question or you're driving for somebody to give some information. It's controversial, right? Because edgy shit works. There's a reason that I'm loud. Maybe not, it's just how I am. But controversy and edginess totally works. And memes and questions is kind of the gold stuff. Just to note, I tried doing this with scraping video off of a bunch of different platforms. Almost got my account banned on Facebook, so don't do that. But this is how you structure your spreadsheet to essentially grab the most enacted stuff, the most relevant stuff for your target audience, and then the goal is to tweak it. So how do I make it my own? Either I change the call to action, I add in a different picture of me doing something similar, I swap in something that I deem more relevant to my audience so that it's magically mine now, and that works. So swapping in this element is where it gets a little shady. So the idea is that now that we have all these groups, we know that they're highly engaged and we have the most engaging content across hundreds of groups. I want to post the same content across 20, 30, 50 groups. As soon as I hit the maximum threshold of anywhere from 100 engagements and 50 to 75 comments or more, then I go in and change what the entire status was about. Let me show you. So again, this is, depending on the flexibility or morals, a great way to go about doing it. So this is, I love this group. For those that dig SEO, great little group, SEO Signals Lab. So this was a post that I put in there a while ago. So I'm going to open up my post. And great, I'm going to do see more. And I want to edit this thing so I can actually put in the URL to a blog post that I'm actually trying to drive traffic to. So I'm going to copy. And I'm going to go down to the bottom. I don't need pictures anymore because I need people to go to my blog post, which is loosely related to this topic. So do that, and then I will drop a link, and it fetches the preview, which is nice, so it's clickable and visual. And then I just remove the link. Ta-da! And I post that, and people engage with it like it's the same post. Ta-da, right? And it works. It works really well. And this is how you drive traffic. Now, the reality is every once in a while you get stuck. Every once in a while you get it exposed. But always make sure to remove that link. I know. People are like, what the fuck is going on? It is what it is. I wanted to show a couple of quick results from this. So this is how, when a lot of companies have difficulty building authority, this is the game that they play. And you can see free Facebook traffic is in there. And the next slide really drives it home. And for those that are curious on how to manage all these different groups, Grytix, I always mispronounce it, is a great platform that allows you to manage multiple Facebook groups so you can scale this. So this is what it looks like 30 days after. So the free Facebook traffic, huge spikes for a company that basically had nothing in the way of domain authority, no real visits. And if you look at the second slide, you see a climbing on organic traffic because it's related to the sector, the industry, whatever the product is. It's really fascinating to see kind of this latency and a catch-up to that. Haven't really figured out exactly why that is, but it's fucking working, and that's the crazy thing. So if you're going to boost, don't. How many people spend money on boosting? Because I'm gonna, yeah, okay, don't do that. Give me your money. I'll take your money and we'll go out for drinks or something. So like the old school way was first day you boost to a warm audience, which is people that have already liked your page. Second day is boosting to the people that are friends with those that liked your page. And then the third day is kind of a new cohort, new audience. Instead of doing that, why don't we set up the boosted post as an original campaign and only target folks that are either using your tracking pixel or in a custom audience? And you can set this up in Ad Manager, right? The concept is really, really simple, is why not get more ability to target and more ability to laser focus? And it totally works. So instead of boosting by going through the same processes of boost, clicking the button, go through Ads Manager and do this for the stuff that actually is engaging. So if you see that you're getting a fair amount of organic engagement on that, go ahead and boost it to a new cohort by going through Ads Manager. I'll send you the slides if you guys want this, but I gotta race to get all this in. So I wanted to show how bad it is as well. I don't know, a lot of speakers have gotten super negative, but I'm going there too. So this is LinkedIn, and this is a guy that basically posted a short story about something that happened with him and his boss, and the tagline is, "Don't ever forget where you came from." So somebody else is like, "Oh shit, that worked." Copy, story, paste. So a few days later, he noticed somebody else completely hijacked and copied his story. So then a few days later, somebody else did, and then somebody else did, and somebody else did, and nothing's original anymore because everybody's doing it. I mean, some dickhead actually put their product underneath the post and just copied and pasted. It's like, hey, take a look at my product. Now, what I find too scummy is actually tagging the original author and just reposting everything. Now, meanwhile, if you look at the engagement, that's higher in terms of engagement than most of my posts over the last year and a half. So there is something to this, but there is no mechanism for essentially tagging or finding the bad players. This is a very American analogy, but it works. So you need to press the rules. The reason there are rules is because nobody's found a way around them yet. And maybe that's not the way everybody in this room thinks, but sports work the same way. So there's this fascinating case of Sean Avery, who basically decided, well, there's no rule as it stands now of distracting the goalie. I'm going to try that. He did that in the NHL playoffs, and they almost threw him out of the game. They had to make a new rule because he broke the system. He was basically doing this in front of the goalie versus where they do the back to the goalie. The reason that all the guys in the NFL, the coaches, are calling plays with a playbook over their mouth is because the Patriots were reading lips and calling into the defense saying, hey, they're running, a waggle to the right. It's crazy. And the idea is that you need to figure out what's working within your industry. Another example of this is Moneyball, fantastic little movie. Somebody applied data to something that didn't have it before, and they found that, oh my God, this actually works. It's interesting to see what you could do within your business that way. So a couple more fast hacks, because I don't want to take up too much more time. Lempod. Has anybody here used Lempod? No? Okay. Lempod essentially automates your engagement. So that magic witching hour of the first hour that your post goes live, you can get a bunch of people to join your pod, and essentially within whatever inner period you kind of set in there, so if it's 20 seconds, 5 minutes, or whatever, you can get people to engage with it. So the idea is that automatically everybody that's in your pod is liking and then commenting whatever comment you insert. And it's a give and take, so you have to let other people do that for your LinkedIn account and vice versa, but this shit works. And there's other versions popping up left and right. The manual version is joining your own pods with people on Slack. And I do that too. That's why I get a shitload of engagement within an hour when I first post stuff. And I make sure to do that for other people as well. AlkaPod is brand new and doesn't set off the radar of LinkedIn. I got a couple more minutes, right? Cool. So scraping posts is super interesting, and I dig it. Phantom Buster is the shit. So the idea is that whenever my competitors are getting a ton of engagement, and this is more of a B2B hack, let's be honest, but I can start scraping all the different unique IDs, the URLs of every account that's liking and also commenting on all of my competitors' posts. So I can create a custom audience and target them. Hey, if you love those guys, you're going to really love what I put out. Because, hey, I know that you're in that area, you're in that cohort, and you're liking and engaging the other stuff. This is the game that we all have to play these days. Otherwise, we're not winning. In terms of data enrichment, there's a ton of different things to go into. I'm not going to. Let me just finish with, I have 80 slides. This was, I really tried to bring it today. I'm sorry, guys. I just want to finish with Jonah Berger's 6 steps to virality. There's a really fascinating breakdown in terms of what's working, and I want to just dive into each one real quick. Social currency. We share stuff to make ourselves sound smart, or at least interesting, or look cool. So this is why This Week in Science or I Fucking Love Science works really, really well. In terms of triggers, everybody knows like hashtag triggered. This is stuff that's top of mind and also stuff that we can relate to. It's stuff that has an immediate knee-jerk reaction. Emotion is the most famous and obviously the one that works the best. This is why every time that you see Subaru ads, it's all about love and deep connection and emotion. But this is the stuff that has high arousal and gets people going. And if you're not sharing stuff with high arousal, you're fucking missing the whole game, right? Last little bit is public, and there's one more beyond this. This is stuff that is essentially related to different groups and cohorts, but the concept is it's something that we all know and we're familiar. How was your summer? I live in Denmark. Oh, it works. And practical value. So from a B2B standpoint, this is where I live. This is the best one. And if you're not doing stuff like this, again, you're missing out on so many opportunities. It's giving away shit. That's why I give away my slides. I want to give people something that they're going to remember, something they can use in the future, and something they can think back on. And the last little bit is stories. We are, as Pixie had mentioned, we're super narrative-focused people. This is the way that we've evolved, and I totally agree with her sentiments on that. I think anytime you look at the old-school way of broetry that used to be this big thing on line breaks on LinkedIn, it capitalized on people's ability to relate to stories. And that's about it. I still think I have another 30 slides. I kid you not. Sorry. I don't know. That's it. Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn if you want these. I love networking, and thank you for having me out in Malmo.